to the Interlude with Drew.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Interlude with Drew. Today, I have a very, very special guest. I've been wanting to have him on as a guest for a while now, and it's truly an honor to have the Bishop Michael Brooks on with me. How are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Andrew. Thank you for having me.
Oh, man, absolutely. It's truly an honor. This is someone that I've looked up to for a long time, even before I knew exactly who he was. His music and his production and everything was truly a blessing to me. His songwriting. I'm a huge Commission fan. If you listen to this podcast, you should probably know that by now. And he is one of the main, I should say, vehicles that was pushing Commission starting out. So we're going to talk a lot about that today. So once again, thank you so much for being a part of this podcast. So I wanted to start off by asking you to talk about your upbringing and how you initially got into music.
Oh, okay. Well, great. Well, I was raised I was born in Stamford, Connecticut, right? Really close to New York.
Yes, sir.
And we were raised in the Church of God in Christ.
Okay.
And so I would have been, if I'd stayed, I'd probably be like the fifth generation in there.
Oh,
My dad was a minister of music at our church, but he was also a minister of music for our jurisdiction, and he always played for different choirs and everything all the time. So he was always going to rehearsals constantly. So my older brother and I always had to go with him to rehearsals, which I really believe kind of formed the foundation for my love, for gospel music. I can remember being a kid, maybe 7, 8 years old, and if I missed church on Sunday, on the right choir day, I would be through.
wow.
Because I loved it that much,
Yeah, yeah.
So really, initially, I was a choir head. I started directing our big choir when I was like 11.
Wow.
And we had this guy named Alvin Askew, very talented guy, was our musician at the time. My dad was the state guy, so he was always all over the place. And this guy kind of saw that I had a knack for it and stuck me in front of a bunch of adults, at 11 years old.
Wow.
So that, and of course, being in New York, I love the radio. And I used to listen to, I believe it was WABC out of New York City. And I would listen to that for hours in my room. And I would put a transistor radio in the window and then put the fan behind it so it would sound like stereo. It's coming through.
Yeah.
and I listened to so much, really a lot of what you would call, a lot of it was pop, like kind of top 40. Didn't know it then because then I played drums and bongos. So I didn't know how to play keys. I didn't start playing keys so I was like 15.
Wow. Okay.
But it formed kind of awareness in me, kind of a style, really, if you will.
Right.
Artists like Elvin Bishop, and these are names you probably never heard before. But James Taylor,
Okay.
a lot of the people like that. And I didn't know that later on when I started writing songs, it's gonna kind of come out in my writing. But that was really my upbringing. I'm, really was just a church choir guy. And even when I really did start writing songs and could play, all of my music was being sang at my local assembly, really.
Wow. Okay. All right. That's
Mhm.
great to know. So, all right. So you lived in Connecticut until you were 16. So I did know that you were born in Connecticut. I didn't realize you were there that long. So that's very
Mhm.
interesting to know. So like I was sharing with you, I lived in Connecticut for about 10 years. I
Okay.
just moved last year. So I'm definitely familiar. I still actually play at a church in Stamford like every Sunday as well. So
Do you really? What's the name of What's the church?
It's a newer church. It's called the Acts Church of Stamford.
Wow. How about that?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we connected in this.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. All
See
right.
there?
Yep, yep. So you started playing at 15, which is interesting because it's a little later than I would have thought because you're amazing on keys. And so you started at 15. How did you transition from like playing drums and congos to playing the keys?
Well, I always wanted to play
Okay.
uh, key, play organ.
Okay, okay.
Even when I was, before I could play, like, I'd be at church playing one note on the piano, which was like on the other side of the church. You remember how they put a piano on one side and the organ was
Yep,
on the
yep.
other side?
Yeah.
And I would get on the piano and play like one note in the key they were playing in and
Okay.
just bang that one note. And I
Right.
did that for some years.
Okay.
And the funny thing about it was I kind of had a sense of entitlement because my dad was kind of the top guy. So
Got
even when we had like a big musical or something, there would be all of these musicians. Somebody would want to be on the piano, and I'd be sitting on the piano in one note. And my mother
Oh,
used to always kick me off the piano
yeah,
from the
yeah,
audience. That's a funny story.
yeah.
But my elder brother, who's he's deceased now, but he was a really talented saxophonist,
Okay.
and he knew a couple of chords. He showed me a couple of chords. Then my dad was going to start. We had come to the place where I really wanted to play. He knew it, so he gave me this one lesson,
Okay.
and we just never got back to it. He gave me one lesson,
One lesson.
and the rest I kind of figured it out.
Wow.
And so that's really kind of how it happened. But if when you're our house was a musical house, so there was always music playing. Again, my elder brother and I, we were like organist hounds. We were always going someplace listening to the dude on the organ.
Yeah, yeah.
Though we couldn't play well, we knew when somebody could really play
Right.
because my dad was a phenomenal organist.
Okay, okay.
Um, so it just kind of developed. At 14, I started kind of putting songs together,
Wow.
and I would ask my mother to kind of critique my songs,
Wow.
and she'd be cooking or something and say, "Hey, what do you think about this?"
Yeah.
And I saw that she always liked everything I did, of course. But what I did do that really helped me was I would listen to my Andre Crouch records
Wow.
to
Okay.
try to determine whether or not my lyrics were as strong as his.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one thing, and which is amazing that I got a chance to tell him that at one point too.
You did. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because in my eyes, he's probably the greatest gospel artist of all time, and his lyrics are deep. So to think that that's
Unbelievable.
like your measuring stick, that's powerful.
Yeah. Here's a guy that wrote "The Blood Will Never Lose Its Power" at
Exactly.
14 years old.
Amazing. Amazing.
Wow. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Wow, that's really powerful to think that that was initially like starting out like do my songs or my lyrics sound as deep as that. That's amazing. So around 16 you moved to Detroit, correct?
Correct.
So what was it like coming to Detroit? Because around that time uh Motown was already established. There was so
Uh huh.
many huge R&B acts like Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson, so many different The Temptations, so many different R&B acts, but at the same time, a lot of gospel artists were just starting out around that time. What was it like
Hmm.
moving from Connecticut to Detroit?
You froze a little bit there, so
Sorry about that.
just
Am I back now?
yeah, you are. Just
Okay,
give me
yeah,
the
sorry. I
last.
was saying, what was it like moving to Detroit from Connecticut, knowing that Motown was already huge with artists like Stevie Wonder, Smokey Robinson,
Mhm.
The Temptations, and then even on the gospel side, a lot of the great gospel artists that we know today were starting out. What was it like moving to Detroit around that time?
Well, the first thing that uh, it was absolute culture shock.
Oh,
You
okay.
know, I mean, like you would not believe. I mean, I went from, where Stanford is to,
Yep.
you hit White Plains. Next thing you know,
Yep.
you can drive to Brooklyn pretty quick.
Yep. Real quick.
Well, I moved to when we first came. We didn't come in the city of Detroit. We lived out by where the airport is, a city called Romulus.
Okay.
And these people had big, long Jerry curls, and they had these hairdos with waves in them going up in the air like that. And
Yeah.
here I am You know, I got like a short haircut with a long part in it from Connecticut. You know,
Yep.
and then in terms of my my speech and my dialect,
Mm-hmm.
you know, every time I went to a teacher to give them my records before, you know, okay, take a seat over there, they would always go, "Hey, listen, everybody, be quiet. Listen to this guy talk."
Really?
You know, it's that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, it was terrible, man. And it took me. The only thing that really kind of helped me assimilate quickly was I was an athlete. So, you know,
Okay.
between I played 3 sports in high school, and that kind of helped me kind of get along. But um, I was able to meet some people who kind of had uh, I don't know, kind of a foot kind of in the Detroit music scene, you know. So I started playing for this church um, at 16. Yeah, I started playing for this church, and I met a guy who you know, this guy knew kind of all of the great organists in the city,
Yeah.
and he started to he and I and another friend of mine, we started going to concerts where Tommy Whitfield would be, like,
Wow.
you know, his choir was going to sing.
Yeah.
You know, we'd be sitting there, you know, tape recording everything we heard,
Uh-huh.
and it was, you know, kind of little by little by little. You kind of go here, you meet this guy, you meet that person, you meet that person, and it just kind of happens.
Wow.
And
Okay.
so, but initially, it was pretty difficult because, you know, I was we moved in October, and I was a junior in high school.
Right.
So, you know, it was like, whoa,
Yeah, just thrown in the fire kind of.
yeah.
Yeah. Were you at Mumford High School?
I didn't go to Mumford because I was in Romulus.
Oh,
I
right.
wasn't even in the city of Detroit yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got
I was out by the airport.
got you. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
I asked that because I know a lot of or most of the people that ended up being in commission went there. So
Yeah.
who was the first commission member that you met, and how did you meet them?
I met Michael Williams, the drummer.
Yes, sir.
So this is by this time, I guess I'm about 19.
Okay.
And there was a record store here where the guy that owned the record store was the guy that threw all of the big gospel concerts in the city of Detroit. It was called God's World. Okay, so he had a group called the God's World Singers,
Okay.
and so um, somehow my brother and I think we played somewhere. Somebody saw us
Mm-hmm.
and said, "Hey, we need some musicians for the God's World Singers."
Okay.
And so we were willing to do it because if you played for them, you could get in all the concerts free.
Oh,
So
okay.
my
Yep.
my brother played sax and I was playing keys. And it's one rehearsal we go to. Mike Williams is there.
Okay.
He's playing drums.
Yep.
And you got to know Mike. He's like an infectious kind of personality, especially back then. You know, he's like, "Hey man, you know, you're pretty sweet, man." He was like, you write songs too? I said, yeah. You know, so we became friends. I went to church with him a couple times. You know, he came to church with me a couple times.
Yeah.
And then Mike was in a group called Saved.
Okay.
That had a bunch of people in there whose names you would probably know. And what happened was they kind of fell apart, but they were trying to keep it together. And he asked me if I would play for them. And I
Okay.
said, well, you know, I'll come to rehearsal, you know. So I show
Yeah.
up at rehearsal, and a lot of the people that were supposed to be there did not show. And then I just kind of took it over. I said, well, look, let's just make a new group.
Yeah.
And so Mike was in there, and then we had some other people that were in there. And somebody in the group said, I know this guy named Keith Staten who can really, really sing. And so
Wow.
we reached out to him and we got him in there. So we had this group called Blessed.
Okay.
But it all started because I met Michael Williams.
Right.
So I like a lot of the other guys that ended up being commissioned. I didn't know them yet.
Okay.
That kind of evolved after a while.
Right. Right. Okay. So
Mm-hmm.
that makes sense. So you met the musician first, the fellow musician.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Wow. Okay. So it's interesting to me that he acts like, you play good. Do you write music? So it's like he was
Yeah.
automatically looking, for an element that, made a huge difference later on. So after Blessed, when you guys, started working with Blessed, so I haven't heard, I guess Carl Reed, Marvin Sapp, and Mitchell Brooks element yet. When did you meet them?
Well, we had Blessed, and it was going pretty well for a while, but we just couldn't. I mean, we got to the place where we were doing demos, and Pop Winans started managing us,
Okay.
and he was getting us in some places, and we did a couple of demos, and he was trying to get us signed, but it just wasn't happening.
Yeah.
So it just kind of, it was really at the point where it's just kind of, like, what's next? Okay. By this time, I was playing for Vanessa Bell Armstrong.
Yes.
So what took place was I was at a musical, and she was at the musical. My group sang. She didn't have a musician, so her husband asked me if I would play for her. He asked me if I knew this song she sang, and I knew the song I played. And so afterward, he said, "Oh man, I appreciate you so much." I said, "Well, you got a card or something?" He gave me his card. I gave him my number. I said, "You want me to play some other time? Just call me. I'll come play."
Okay.
He was like, "Oh, thank you so much." So then I started playing for her. In fact, she was the first artist that I really went on the road with.
Okay, got you.
So I played for Vanessa for a while, and then Detroit, I like to call it a little big city.
Okay.
It's a big city, but it's kind of like it's small in terms of everybody knows everybody, or has at least heard of them, right?
Yeah.
And so I was playing for Vanessa at this event downtown at a place theater called the Masonic Temple, and I got to the gig early, and when I got there, Fred was there.
Okay.
And we just kind of said, "Hey man, yeah, I've seen you around, man." And I told him, I said, "Yeah, man, you sound like DJ Rogers a little bit to me." I said, "Yeah, I heard you say." So we were just hanging out backstage, and I sat down at the piano, and I started going like, "Hey, sing this." And then I'd tell him how it went and what the lyric was, and we did it on a couple of songs. And then he said to me, he said, "Where you get these songs from, man?" I said, "Oh, these are mine,"
Wow.
And that was kind of our first encounter.
Wow.
So then I went to church with a guy named Michael Wright.
Okay.
We were in the same jurisdiction, okay?
Yes, sir.
And Mike played guitar. His brother Earl, his older brother Earl was a tremendous musician.
Okay.
And we started kind of doing little things together. So myself, Fred, Mike Williams, and Michael Wright, we went to the PAW convention together.
Got you.
The Pentecostal Assemblies of the World, okay?
Yes, sir.
Because Fred and Mike, they were apostolic.
Yes, sir.
Myself and Mike Wright, we were Kojic boys, which was a strange dichotomy in that time anyway,
I'm sure.
Yeah. But we went to the convention, and they were recording, and this one guy had asked us if we would play together and play for him, and we played, and of course we had a vibe because we've been playing it in the project. Wanted us to play on some more tunes, so he says, "Where's that Detroit unit?"
Yeah.
And after that, we started calling ourselves the Unit.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so that was before there were any, really a lot of singers involved. We were playing and going on the road. Oh my goodness, myself, Fred, and Michael Wright played for the Winans, but he played for them when they were the Testimonials.
Got you. Yep.
So that was that was in the early days.
Yeah.
We all played for a guy named Donald Vales. We used to go on the road with his choir.
Okay. Okay.
Mike Williams and Michael Wright played for Tremaine.
Oh.
And I was still doing Vanessa Bell Armstrong whenever I could.
Yeah.
Plus my local church or whatever.
Yes.
And then Fred started playing with the Wines. I mean, it was like we were anywhere you went in town, one of us might show up playing for somebody.
Right.
Yeah, it was that kind of thing. And so again, that's prior to really knowing the singers, because everybody in the group knew somebody, but not all of us knew everybody who would eventually be commissioned.
Right.
So it was kind of an organic kind of thing that started to happen.
Wow, that's amazing. So
Mhm.
at this time, let's say 19, 20, 21 or so, So you had a pretty quick trajectory of like starting out on playing piano and then getting like really good, like to be able to play for all these artists, right? Was there like, did you feel that like, wow, I can actually do this, and your improvement was kind of, going fast, or was there like an initial struggle?
It's kind of the weird thing, when I was like 12, people would ask me, "What do you want to do for a living?" And I'd say, "I want to make records."
Wow. Okay.
Now, I had no idea. I didn't even know what the process was.
Right, right,
How even do you make a record?
right.
I just kept saying it because it was just something that I felt like, I would. I had a secret, and my secret was when I was sitting at window listening to the radio. Um, there were sometimes like ballads with like big string arrangements,
Yeah.
and I'd be sitting there listening to it, and I'd be in tears.
Wow.
I mean, I'd be like crying like a baby,
Uh-huh.
and I'd be looking around because I wouldn't want any of my brothers and sisters to kind of walk in and go like, "What you crying for?"
Yeah,
Like.
yeah, yeah. Yep.
But the music was hitting me like that.
Yeah, yeah.
Man, it was just um, music was just really kind of touching my soul like that.
Early on. Yep.
Hit me right in the yeah, and that's what music does. I mean, but so I kept saying it, kept saying it, kept saying. By the time I got to like I want to say about 18 or so, um, my prayer really was, okay, God, do you want me? Am I supposed to just keep writing these songs and just at the local church, just teach them to the choir and be a blessing to the ministry at the local level? If I'm supposed to do that, I'm good with that.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'm supposed to do something else, if it's supposed to be like a worldwide kind of thing, I want to do that too. So,
Right. Yep.
I'm waiting for him to give me an answer. He never did answer me.
Oh yeah.
The only thing that happened was one door open and another door open and another door open and another door open.
Wow. Just ordered your steps.
Yeah. And the thing about musicianship, if you go, Detroit is like, well, all your big cities have it. New York has it, Chicago, and Connecticut has it for sure.
Yeah.
When I lived in Connecticut, when I was coming up, Hubert Powell was like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
oh,
Yep.
you know, I remember Hubert had a band called Wood, Brass, and Steel.
Yes, sir.
That was, yeah, they was hot.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of airplay on jazz radio,
Okay.
and so by this time, nobody wanted to let him on, and they don't bring that worldly music in the church.
Oh, okay.
But my
Okay.
dad would always, during our convocations, my dad would always sneak him on the organ. Because you could
Okay.
come up the back way to get on the organ. And man, we'd be just kind of hanging out at Trinity Temple.
Trinity. Okay. Okay.
We'd be over there hanging out down in the basement. And somebody would say, "Hey, Hubert is on the organ." And we would like run up there.
Oh wow.
Just because he was so crazy with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And then to see Kevin and Doobie and all them like that,
Yes,
man,
sir.
it's nuts.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Them
Yep.
Piles, I don't know what they eating over there. I don't know
Yeah,
what it
they
is.
passing it.
But
Pass that Tyler down real quick.
yes, sir. Yes, sir. But it was something that I felt like, I don't know what this is, and I don't know why I'm saying it, but I think I'm supposed to be saying it. And just one thing led to another. If you're going to be an organist in Detroit, you're gonna have to be able to really play.
Oh, okay.
And you can, and there's guys in Detroit that you ain't never seen before that can go.
Right. Right.
And you know how it is. You hang around good musicians, you can't help but get better.
Yep. You can't help it.
Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, that makes sense. So it's interesting how like it's like the seed was already planted in you to be
Mhm.
a good musician before you even started playing. So like the way how the music was touching you at early on before you even started, and then it's like that kind of flowed out of you once you really started playing.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing. So when eventually you guys well, before I get to that, you said Pop Winings was managing the group Bless. So when did you get to meet the Winings or the Testimonials at the time? Because I know they
Oh
were
well,
probably one of the first to blow up.
yeah. By that time, the Winans already had their first record had come out. In
Okay.
fact, a bunch of us auditioned for their band at the same night.
Wow.
Myself, I was there. Tim Bowman was there.
Okay.
Uh, Fred was there, and I remember they canceled me because we had Friday night service at my church, and I had to be there at 8 o'clock, and it
Oh,
was, and the audition was supposed to be at like 3 or 2 or something like that,
yeah.
and everybody was on time. They didn't even show up till maybe 7 at the
Oh,
earliest.
wow. Oh, man.
Yeah, so we were sitting there waiting for them. They was D Winans by this time,
Yep.
and I was like, it got to be like 7:20, and I said, I'm sorry, but I got to go.
Yeah.
And they looked at me like, are you crazy? Like, you got to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but I kind of had a little different. How can you say? I saw them a little differently
Okay.
because, I wasn't from Detroit,
Right. Right. Right.
so I didn't kind of come along, seeing them in high school, winning all the contests and all that kind of stuff. I was just like, they talented,
Yeah.
but hey, I play for my church. I got to go, man.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so I left. Fred ended up playing with them. Of course, Tim Bowman was uh, Bishop Marvin's brother-in-law
Yep.
at
Yep.
the time, so he gig real easy.
Uh-huh.
And but I did later on. I played for Winans Part Two for a good while,
Oh, okay.
and that was after BB and CC had that first hit.
Yeah.
They had a group called Winans Part Two. BB, CC, Daniel, Vicky, and a girl named Marvie Wright, who was
Okay. Okay.
Michael Wright's sister, the guitar player.
Yes. Yes.
And so I saw BB and Daniel at a musical or something. I guess I played for somebody, and they came up to me, man, we really need you to play for us. We really need you. I was like, okay, well, and I did. I went on the road with them a little bit, and then even after the commission thing was going, every now and again, BB would call me like, man, we need somebody like right now, but we need somebody who already know what we're gonna do.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I was like, well, if you can get me home by this time, I'll do it. So
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Okay.
Yeah. So mhm.
Did Winans Part Two record it all, or was it mainly just kind of traveling?
I think they did some demos and stuff, but they never really recorded.
Okay, got you.
Never really recorded.
All right. So you guys commissioned the group, came together sometime before 1984, correct? Probably 82 or
Oh
something.
yeah. Like 80. Well, it took us 3 years from the time we came together before our first record came out, which came out in 83.
4, I believe. Oh, okay, okay.
Is it 83? Well, I know I was 23. No, came out in 85.
Oh, okay, okay.
Came out in 1985. And so go 3 years back, and that's when we really started.
Got you. So when you guys first came together, were you just I've heard stories of how you guys, would write songs and open up for different artists. Like, what was that process like when you guys were starting out?
Well, when we first started, we did open for a couple of people. We didn't really do a whole lot of like big shows.
Okay.
Um, we were, we were kind of doing our thing, and we had a couple of kind of strategic things that we did in the city. One thing that was interesting that happened for us was, um, like of course they called them musicals back then, right?
Yep, yep.
So we did a thing at one of the big musicals, and it went like crazy. Like the people acted nuts.
Hmm.
Uh, and then we did another thing somewhere else, and the same thing happened. By the time we did the third or fourth thing that we were doing, people were singing our songs along with us,
Oh, wow.
but we didn't have a record.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was almost. I want. It was like a good scary.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It was just like really, really strange. We were more. It was more of the guys that played were still playing for different people,
Right, right.
that sort of thing. But when the commission thing started, it started kind of turning around. I mean, it took us a long time to get a record out,
Yeah.
but in terms of just whether or not people enjoyed what we were doing, I mean, that was obvious pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I heard that at some point I believe you and Fred got to go in the studio with Thomas Whitfield at some point.
Yeah, well, we were working on our first record, and we decided that we were going to get this thing going. So the unit, who was the band,
Yes.
we had been playing for different like wedding receptions and stuff. So we started saving the money,
Okay.
with the idea that we're going to go in the studio, we're going to be our own group.
Yeah.
We're going to stop playing for people. We're going to be our own group. So okay, um, we got some money to go in the studio, and we didn't really know who was going to be the producer.
Right.
um, Fred and I had basically arranged, the music that we had, and we just didn't trust ourselves
Okay.
because we felt like once we got a deal, we were, actually we'd be kicking names around. I hope we get a deal and I hope they put so and so with us.
Yeah.
Or I hope we get a deal and they put so and so with us. And some interesting things. By the time we did the deal, excuse me, we were waiting to hear who the producer was going to be. And the record company said, well, who did the stuff they just sent us already? And they told them, well, Brooks and Hammond did it. They said, yeah, let them finish it.
Wow.
And that's, once we kind of got the okay
Yeah.
from the record company, we were kind of like, oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'll give you a little story. Tommy Tommy agreed to go in with us. Thomas Whitfield was a great guy. Just, just an encouraging, great guy, just willing to share with you any, knowledge that he had. Tommy was just going to listen to what we were doing, and that was that. So we go in with this one night to lay some rhythm tracks, and then we ran out of time. Okay, we're going to come back the next night. The next day, we come back to lay down the same song that we were working on the night before, but I had decided that I was going to change things. So I changed a couple of the chord progressions and a couple of things around a little bit. Of course, I want to impress Tommy Whitfield, right?
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So we start working on the song. I start playing the song, and 15 minutes or so into it, Tommy stops the whole session, calls me in the control room. He says, so why are you playing that different from the way you played it last night? And I said, well, I thought I could make it better. I was, just trying to just gloss it up a bit. He goes, listen, let me tell you something. He says, you you're one of those guys that pretty much whatever you come up with the first time is going to be very commercial.
Wow.
He said, so whatever you do the first time, you just go with that.
Okay. Okay.
And I never ever looked back from that statement.
Wow.
You know,
Okay.
like here's the guy telling me, trust your gut
Trust your gut.
because you're hearing this right.
Wow.
And so, and that doesn't mean that what you do can't be enlarged upon.
Yeah. Yeah.
That you gotta, the Bible says, train up a child in the way he should go, right? And
Yep.
when he's old, he will not depart from it.
Yes,
And it
sir.
doesn't mean that you teach your child about Jesus, and then he's gonna be guaranteed he's gonna be saved. Doesn't
Yeah.
mean that.
Yeah.
It means train up your child in a sway, push him in the direction that his gifting, his talent, is showing you.
Yep.
If a dude is showing you computer science, don't try to make him a mechanic.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yep.
saying? And so what I learned from that was that you could be open, of course, to direction. You could be open to other people's creativity, but if you got a thing, you got to trust you. And then I've also always after that told other producers, if you can do something and 200, 300,000 people like it, pretty much on the right track.
Yeah. 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 For sure.
Mhm.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So that's amazing advice because like it's almost like he's telling you don't reinvent the wheel. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
I've had
That's
to tell, and there are times in my career where I've had to tell record companies kind of like, well, no, we don't think this should be the single, or we think this should be, or we think you need to do this. And then, you hate to say it, but like well, I'm kind of here because we had some hits.
Yeah, yep, definitely.
So, y'all show me yours, and then whoever has the most hits, we'll go with that person's advice.
Yep, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, because sometimes, you get companies change, administrations, and people come in that really don't even know anything about music. They're just somebody's friend.
Yeah,
And, they get put in a position where they're telling you what you should do.
right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So you at this time were mainly the chief writer of the group because I believe at that time Fred Hammond either he wasn't writing or he just started writing. I'm not sure how much
Mm,
Mitchell Jones was writing. So you were writing the majority of the song, but you weren't singing with them,
right.
right? So you were teaching all the
Exactly.
parts, or were they kind of working on the parts once you taught the songs?
Fred and I would get together. I show him how the song went. You know,
Okay.
here's the tune, here's the moves, this is the lead, here's the background should do this, here's the phraseology. And then they would get together, and Fred would teach the guys the songs. And then they would kind of, he was the driving force in terms of background, um, arrangements, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Mitchell Jones, Mitch too, also in many cases had a lot of great ideas in
Okay.
terms of background. But uh, at first, really, I was kind of the only songwriter, um, except for Parks Stewart. Mitch
Okay.
could play
Yep.
a little bit, so he and Parks could really write,
Okay.
and so, but he couldn't play it all.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so that's how they were able to kind of bring some things to the table. And I guess you could say, everybody else kind of learned how to write once they saw what it was. We'll say,
Hmm.
so what do you need to do? And back then, we had this all for one for all mentality. Most of us did.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of times when um, I'd do a track and give it to a guy and say, hey, write the lyrics to this.
Oh, okay.
You
Okay.
got to, because even back then, I never took publishing. I never took somebody, like if somebody did a song, they brought a song, and I did all the music and all the musical arrangement, the whole shot. I never took the publishing,
Oh, okay. Okay.
which really back then I could have taken the publishing on virtually everything,
Yeah.
but I didn't do it. Yeah, because we was all boys.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Okay. So first album comes out. You said 1985. I'm going on. So a lot of classic commission songs were on that first album. One
Hmm.
song I really love in particular, I feel like doesn't get as much credit probably as it should, is the song called Unworthy. You
Yeah.
wrote that song. I love that song. I was actually, because I was born in 1990, so I, kind of missed that whole starting out. But I was introduced to that song on Marvin Sapp's album, I believe, when he recorded it. And then later on
Right.
found out that it was originally a commissioned record. Do you remember like how that song came about?
Yeah. Actually, I wrote that song for the kids choir at church.
Oh,
And
okay. Okay. Wow.
they sang it. They
Yeah.
sang it first, and then the group Bless sang it,
Yeah.
and then it ended up on commission record.
Got you. Okay. Okay. Wow. And did you write the
Hmm.
title track I'm going on as well?
I did, yes.
Okay. All right. That's amazing. So in those times, like I've heard stories of how like you rehearse the songs and then when you got to the studio, you pretty much had to get it like as soon as possible. And you guys, I mean, as quickly as possible or in as few takes as possible. And you guys would actually like find people for messing up on the record. Is that how it went? Like if they made a
Well,
mistake while you were recording?
no, we didn't do that. But see, our urgency in the studio was a matter of economic necessity.
Right, right.
When we first recorded, we'd have a lot of money, and
Yeah.
so we had to get it down. So, funny story. After the first record came out, we had next record we were signed to Light Records, and they gave us I can't remember what the budget was, maybe like 30 grand or something like that.
Okay.
And so we had money to record, but we were so used to uh, this manner of approaching it that we did. You know, we would rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. We went in to cut the rhythm tracks, and we were done with everything in like 2 hours.
Wow.
So we're sitting
Wow.
there going like,
What else is yeah.
well, yeah. So it's like, well, let's do it again. Maybe we'll do it better.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the same old, same old. We were just used to doing it because, hey, studio time back then was, my goodness, probably like 60, $65 an hour for,
Wow.
you know, in a 24 track room. And hey, you know, we just didn't have the budget. So we had to get it done. Now
Yeah.
we were notorious for finding people for stuff, but not because, you know, you messed up in the studio.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting though, because nowadays, if you're recording, you could do it at home. Like I know I record a lot of stuff at home, and
Exactly.
the urgency is not the same. Like
No.
unless you have a deadline to meet or anything, it's not the same as like. And I've actually recorded when you're playing for an hour, and that urgency is a whole lot different. Where you know, like
It's a whole
okay,
nother ballgame.
yeah, I don't have a lot of time. I need to get this right, and it's like a different type of focus. So that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then to hear how clean the records came out, like it's not like you can go back and say, "Oh, I could point out a mistake where they messed up or anything like that." So man,
Mm-hmm.
that is it's
Yeah.
a different time. So there is a song that's a really popular commission song that you wrote, sang by Keith Staton called "Will You Be Ready?" And
Mm-hmm.
it's you know sometimes when you write you know, a timeless song. And a lot, you know, to be honest, a lot of times it seemed like almost everything that was written around that time was timeless. But there are certain songs
Yeah.
that are extremely relevant for that time, and it seems even more relevant for these times. And I would say "Will You Be Ready" is definitely one of those songs. It's sobering in the thought of thinking about, you know, how the signs of the times are increasing every day and how we need to be focused on making it to heaven. Like, what was your thought process
Mhm.
behind writing that song?
Wow, that's a great story as well. It was I was working on the Young Artists for Christ workshop record,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
and I needed to add a couple more tracks. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna do a hymn, but it'll be a new song, but it's gonna sound like a hymn.
Yeah.
So I called Keith. Keith, you know, Keith, the hymn singer. So I
Yep.
said to Keith, I said, hey man, I got a song I want you to do, and for you to go on the Young Artist record, and it's gonna be a hymn. So you don't worry about it. You ain't really got to learn nothing but the lyrics. I said, you're just gonna sing it like a hymn. He said, okay. So I said, meet me at the studio tomorrow. So we go to the studio. He still doesn't know the song, and I haven't really even, not really, I haven't written the lyrics yet. But I'm
Oh,
just trying to get him to see Keith is gonna, we're gonna put it in the same phrasing like a hymn. You're gonna sing it, and you're gonna, you know, we discuss all that. So I go like, give me a few minutes. I take a pad, and I'm sitting there with the engineer. He goes to get coffee or something, and then I just start writing. And
oh,
I
wow.
wrote the lyrics out probably about 10 minutes.
Wow.
So
Wow.
then I said, okay, Keith, you're gonna sing it like this, and I tell him how he's gonna sing it. And so we got the piano in the control room, and Keith is out in the booth, and he goes out there and he sings it down just like I told him. And when he got to the end of the song, the engineer who was got it, John Yash,
Yep.
John is kind of, yeah, John is sitting there, and Keith gets to the end of the song, and I go like, hey man, you know, come on in. And I turn to look at John. His face is completely wet. He is like weeping.
Wow.
And, you know, I'm kind of looking around the room almost like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Because I don't even really, I hadn't really locked in with what I wrote on the paper.
Yeah.
That was my first time writing it down.
Wow. Wow.
And it was Keith's like first time singing the song. So that whole thing, and then the way the song made it on the commission record, it was going on Young Artists for Christ, and we were on the road somewhere going somewhere on the bus, and I said, "Yeah, I got to check this out, man." I put a cassette in,
Yeah.
and everybody's listening to the song, and then Fred goes to me, he said, "Man, you got to keep that for us, man." He said, "You got." keep that for us.
Yeah.
I said, you think so? He's like, I'm telling you, man, you got to. And so that's how it happened.
Wow.
In the
Wow. So
story.
it's
Yeah.
really, really organic, unplanned, just came together like a classic record.
Just came together, man. It's just it is the orchestration of the Holy Ghost.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
I think I heard a similar story. Like you didn't write this one, but I heard a similar story of how Running Back to You came together. Kind of like it wasn't planned out the way to be. Do you remember how that happened?
Same thing.
Wow.
Yeah, that song was for Derek Brinkley.
Okay. Oh, it
So
was. Okay.
Fred was showing me the song. He's playing bass notes. And I'm going like, well, we can go here or we can go there. You know,
Yeah.
we figuring all of that out, right? We
Yeah.
we get to the end of everything. We got a full song now. And I go like, we should keep this.
Yeah.
Same kind of scenario. He said, think so? I said, I'm telling you, man, we need to keep this.
Wow.
And that's what happened.
Wow.
Yeah, that song, he did that song initially for Derek to go on Derek Brinkley's record.
Wow. I didn't know that part. Wow. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Yeah.
I wanted to ask about another one of the commission favorites, at least from us fans. Like, it's a powerful song and it's very melodic, and the chord changes in there is like amazing. It's Love Isn't Love.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another song you wrote. Can you talk about how that came about?
This is a funny story. With Love is a Love, I said, I think I'm gonna write some like inspirational songs.
Okay.
See if I can't get them I might even sell them to somebody,
Yeah.
And so I start working on a song, I can tell you and all the things that I do, I get to, but my words, the whole thing. And then when I get to where I want to make that move, like that, to go from D flat to A flat,
Yeah.
it's almost like this part poured out of me. I
Wow.
tried to make it not real preachy Jesus-y,
Yeah.
but I couldn't help it.
Couldn't help it.
I didn't have another definition for love.
Mm.
And it came to me all in one swoop. A lonely runaway that has no place to lay his head. Who can tell them, that they're loved? That one is lost in the field. The whole
Wow.
thing came to me like in one swoop.
Wow.
So it was just that. I mean, and I believe about songwriting. Songwriting is it is a for Christian music. Okay. Now you can have a knack to write songs. You can be a great songwriter and not be Christian.
Yep.
But you can't be a great Christian songwriter and not be a Christian.
Oh, yeah. That's good. That's good.
You get that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So because you don't even really know, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus Christ, you don't know how to talk about him.
Exactly.
You'll talk about him like he's a woman or something.
Yep.
Instead of Jehovah.
Right.
Your
Exactly.
reverence will your reverence meter will be off.
It will. Yep.
So so the thing is, the scripture says that that a good tree, a good tree will bring forth good fruit, and an evil tree will bring forth evil fruit.
Yes, sir.
So you can't expect to get it the opposite way. You're not going to get good fruit from an evil tree, or vice versa. And it talks about that because it says, "For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks."
Yes, sir.
And I believe the same thing applies to songwriting. If you are a Bible reader and a person who gets in the Word of God, who studies the Word of God, then what comes out of you will be the truth of the Word. And you don't need to say it like thous and these, like King James English.
Yep.
But you will still be able to really interpret the heart of God because you know Him.
Exactly.
You have relationship with Him.
Yep.
And my mother told me something when I was a teenager. And she said, if you keep scripture in your songs, you will never go wrong.
Oh, man. Yes, sir.
If you keep the word of God in your songs, when you write something, it's always going to have some power to it.
Wow.
Because the word is the power.
Yes, sir.
And if I believe it was Walter Hawkins that said, if we sing about a problem, we're obligated to sing about the solution.
Oh, yeah.
He said, the solution's name is Jesus.
Yes, sir.
So that's what I believe. When you hear songs that are theologically erroneous and incorrect,
Yeah.
it's because the writer don't know nothing about the Bible.
Yeah. The relationships are. Yep.
Yeah.
That's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. Yes, sir. So you talked about, you briefly alluded to Young Artists for Christ. So I believe this started in the mid 80s, maybe 85, 86. You talk about like how what your vision was to start that?
Well, actually, the funny thing is, we had a meeting, commission, and I said, fellas, I said, man, the craziest thing that's happening with us is people really like us.
Yeah.
Because we were just a bunch of church boys, man. We wasn't even really into trying to be famous or nothing,
Yep.
A funny story on the way to this answer is that the first real concert that we had that was like out of town, I think we did Cleveland, but the first big one was in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
And so back then, there is no internet, there's radio tracking, but it takes a long time. Okay.
Yeah.
And so we get in town, we go to the venue, which is like this some kind of temple. It wasn't really a church, but it was kind of a big auditorium.
Got you.
We do the sound check, go back to the hotel. We come back to the venue like an hour before the show, and we can't even get in the parking lot.
Wow.
It's like swamped everywhere, right?
Wow. Yep.
So
It's out of
they had
town.
to get security to get us in the parking lot. Once they got us in the parking lot, then they had to escort us off of the van. They got dudes like forming a human chain because people are going nuts.
Wow.
We go in this place when we go when we went on stage, it's jokers standing on top of each other almost. But we knew nothing about this.
Yeah.
This is like our first time seeing something like this.
Right.
And when the concert was over, the same thing. They had to escort us out. They wanted us to sign autographs, but the crowd was pushing too hard, and they had to stop that. And the thing that made me know that something different has happened was there was this guy who was a preacher, who was an evangelist that would preach at our church. Okay.
Yes, sir.
And he was a big deal. He was a national evangelist, preached everywhere. And when I saw that guy in the crowd calling my name, trying to get me to let him come through, I was like, whoa.
Oh, wow.
I was like, this dude know everybody.
Yeah. Wow.
It was that kind of thing.
Yep.
But okay. What was the other half? I was telling you, that was the sideboard conversation.
Yep.
But you had asked me.
Young Artists for Christ.
Oh, Young Artists. Young Artists starts in, I started kind of laying the groundwork in 1986.
Okay.
But I had gone to commission to the fellas. I said, man, we hot as fire. Why don't we go to GMW every year. We see the worth of a big, huge convention. I was like, but there's no young people's version of this.
Wow. Okay.
And I said, there's no young version of this, and let's just tell the truth. And I go, and we like ladies.
Yeah. Yep.
I signed up, so I'm like, hey man, what if we had our own workshop? What if we had a commission workshop? Y'all don't really have to worry about, I know how to do choirs. I said, all we got to do is just be there. We could do workshops about how to break into gospel music.
Yeah.
We could bring in some attorneys and the whole thing. And the guys didn't want to do it. So I waited a year and did it myself in 87.
Okay.
And that's where Young Artists for Christ was my production company.
Okay.
And so when they didn't want to do the workshop, I was like, well, I waited, gave them a little time to kind of rethink their position. They didn't want to do it. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna do this myself. And I did. And it was really funny how it came together because I had no budget for no advertising, no nothing.
Yeah.
I had enough money to rent the venue, but everything else was word of mouth.
Oh,
everything
wow.
was word.
Yeah.
So I remember David Frazier, good buddy of mine. we did a concert in Brooklyn like the week before the workshop, and I was taking my flyers everywhere we went and just giving them to people, right?
Yeah.
David says, oh man, this is great, man. Man, I'm gonna try to come. I'm thinking, man, you in New York, you ain't coming.
Yeah.
That dude drove from Brooklyn to Detroit
Wow.
and
Wow.
just like showed up on the scene, man.
Yeah.
And so
Wow.
that's how David and I really became friends,
Mm-hmm.
because he came like that, and I was so moved. I said, well, man, let me pay for your hotel at least, so, and then he eventually became vice president of the workshop.
Okay.
And
Okay.
then John Key was trying to get a deal. The guy that was managing us at the time had heard John Key's choir record and was
Yeah.
trying to get him a deal at Ty Scott, which he eventually did.
Okay.
And so when we would go to North Carolina, it was like, hey, man, I got this guy down here named John Key, really talented. You got to talk to him when you see him.
Yeah.
And so when we got down there, I got a chance to connect with him, found out he could play a little bit. I was like, why don't you sit in with us, man? So every time we went to North Carolina, I would have him sit in with us.
Okay.
And that's how he and I became friends.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so then I brought him to Detroit.
Yeah.
And I knew Yolanda because when I first started playing for Vanessa Bell Armstrong, she was a special guest at the that choir was a Southeast Inspirational Choir.
Right.
From
Yep.
Houston, Texas.
Yes,
That,
sir.
Miss Shirley Joyner was the president of the choir.
Okay.
And Shirley's daughter, Reese, Yolanda, and they had a couple other friends. They always rolled together. Yolanda was kind of like the star singer of the choir, right?
Yep.
So I met them at like a dinner they had the night before the big anniversary concert. And I was there with Vanessa, and I didn't know nobody. I'm like, 19. They come over to me and just start talking, striking up a conversation.
Yeah.
So 5 years later, Commission is there for some big event, and somebody comes up to we're signing autographs up to the concert. And Yolanda and three of those friends, Yolanda, Reese, and the other two friends, they come up to get an autograph. We standing there signing autographs, and they hand me their picture, and I go, I'm not signing this. And they kind of look at me like, like, what? What is he, what? Like, why? What's the matter? I said, I'm not signing this. And I said, y'all don't remember me? And it took them actually a minute, but, after a while, they're like, it is you, yeah, we met already. So Yolanda and I became fast friends, and I started bringing her in too. In fact, Yolanda and I were born on the same day, same year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had John Key, of course, the Commission guys eventually started showing up because they kind of had to. I mean, John Key, Yolanda Adams, oh my goodness, Byron Cage.
Oh, wow. Dietrich Haddon too, right?
I was the first guy to let Dietrich ever record in the studio.
I actually got to interview him, and he told me that. That's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing. Wow.
Dietrich, all of them, my goodness. I can remember Eric Dawkins sang in one of we used to have these late night showcase musicals, right?
Yep.
So it'd be after service, and the deal was myself, Dave Frazier. You do know David, do you?
I know
David
who he
Frazier.
is. Yep.
Yeah, he's the guy that wrote all them heads. Hits.
Yes, sir.
I Need You to Survive, all that.
Yes, sir.
So we would sit there and listen to anybody who wanted to sing, and that was the showcase. And we would stay there sometime. It'd be 3 a.m, man. We'd be in that hotel ballroom listening to people sing.
Wow.
But all of those, Eric Dawkins, Joe Pace, Colorado, Mass. My goodness, just of course. Then later on, William Murphy.
Yes.
Just tons of different people. I had Jerry Harrison came up to me one time. Maybe about 10 years ago, he said, listen, I know you don't remember this, but I want to tell you this. He said, I was 12 years old, and a group from my church was going to sing at Young Artists. He said, and my mother let me go with them. He said, and when I got to that convention and I seen what was going on there, that's when I made up my mind that I wanted to do gospel music like I'm doing that. I said, what?
That's powerful.
So you just never know.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Wow.
yeah.
So that's amazing. So out of that one workshop or conference, you had, like you said, Byron Cage, William Murphy, Dietrich Haddon, JJ Hairston. Then it was kind of a springboard for John P. Key as well. I know there was a song, I believe it's called High Calling, that you had Fred Hammond and John P. Key on the vamp. I actually just discovered that song like a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
because like those are like two of my favorite artists. I remember I thought they had first collabed maybe in like 2005 or so when they did a song together, but that was like way back. You had them on the song.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you said he filled in for or sat in with Commission's band as well.
Oh yeah, a lot of times.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of times. And it was funny because they didn't really know him like I knew him.
Yeah, yeah.
So the rest of the guys would kind of be like, "Who's that?" And I'd be like, "Just don't worry about it."
Yeah, yeah. Wow. Wow.
Yeah, but that workshop, man, was really more than I ever could have expected, because I've had so many people come to me and tell me, "Hey, listen, I was in college and I skipped a week of school, got on a bus from Arkansas, all kind of stories, man."
Wow.
And so thinking about very seriously next year doing a big reunion with like anybody that ever participated in Young Artist Prize. And I forget a lot of the names like Darius Brooks.
Okay.
I mean, you could just keep naming people that and these were not people that I'm calling on the phone. They're just hearing about it, going like, "Hey, can I participate?"
Right,
And
wow.
it was that kind of thing. Yeah. And even when we recorded, one good thing we did, if you had a song, you could submit it.
Okay.
If there was any way we could get it on, we was gonna cut your song.
Okay. Yeah, because I know you recorded some original John P. Key stuff as well, right?
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's amazing. So it's I'm sure it's a great feeling to know that you have a huge imprint, not only from Commission, but through your own thing, through Young Artists for Christ. You eventually had the group with William Murphy, trying to remember what it's called. Was it The Nation, right? You started The Nation. Yep. So it's a lot of different things that you're able to do. Then you also started or helped to produce for a group called Witness, who I don't know if she was your wife at the time or she became your wife. Lisa Page Brooks was a part of. Can you talk about that group, the Witness?
Well, I actually started Witness from my sister.
Oh, okay.
My sister Tina comes to me and goes, "Hey, you know what? I think I want to sing. I really want to sing." And so at the time, I was like, Tina could sing, but I didn't think she was a strong enough solo singer.
Okay.
And I said, "Okay, well, let me see about getting somebody to sing." So first, I got one person, and then I had two of them, and then I thought, well, maybe I'll get them a third. Then it came to me, why don't I just do like a female version of Commission?
Wow.
And that's what happened. And it was actually my sister Tina's group.
Wow.
It was for her.
Okay.
And I never really envisioned kind of staying with it. I was just going to make the records, find them some management, and just kind of let them go,
Yeah.
But you know how ladies are. So I was kind of like, you know what? If I don't stay in the middle of this, they're just going to implode. So that's how I just kind of stayed with it. Lisa, my wife, now, she used to sing with her family group.
Okay.
And it just so happened that at the time, they quit singing. And she was free. Another girl in there named Marvy Wright, which was Michael Wright's sister. She was in there, Yolanda Harris, and then another girl that went to my church. Her name was Diane Campbell, or Diane McGee. And the way she got in the group was, it's a funny story. This one Sunday, she sang the song, and I mean, it really ministered. And I was like, you know what? That was great. If I could get her to do that all the time, I'm gonna put her in the group, and that's how she got in the group.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Really, when Witness was hitting, man, they was hitting hard.
Yeah.
They really had an edge, man, because course, my wife could sing already. I mean, but she just had to develop um, her what was her thing,
Yeah.
and I watched that happen over maybe the first two records. When
Okay.
she finally got into really what was her thing, her style,
Yeah.
there's nobody that sings like her.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
She
Yep.
it,
Amazing.
and it's like, I've just seen it, man, over the years.
Yeah.
Just she hits the stage, man, and it ain't no more good when she does.
Right. Right. Right.
You know,
Definitely. Tear the
so
whole
yeah,
stage up.
so that's the story on Witness. They really did accomplish a lot.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we're talking about your legacy and how you have a huge imprint. So I know you do have like a blended family. So you have your son Jay Brooks, and it's funny because I'm Justin.
Mhm.
While we're doing this interview, I'm looking. I'm like, man, Justin looks just like you. That's crazy. Because I first found out about him when he played for Kier Sheard's album,
Mhm.
and
Okay.
I just knew the name, and then eventually I started seeing him playing with her. So it's like the legacy was passed down to him because he plays keys as well, organ and
Mhm.
everything, and he also produces. So and then Lisa has a daughter, Tasha Page Lockhart, who is an
Mhm.
amazing singer as well. Just kind of continue the legacy as well. What is it like, seeing that legacy passed on to the next generation?
Oh, I mean, it's phenomenal. I mean, I remember when Jay didn't want to play keys. I mean, he's a phenomenal drummer.
Okay, okay,
Um, Man, that dude was doing. I had him doing sessions when he was like 12.
wow,
Yeah,
wow,
he could go.
okay,
But at first he didn't want to play keys, and I kept making him play because he had a knack for it. But to see him flourish in that way, one interesting thing, if there's something that I regret regarding the kids, and the thing about them is they knew each other already before we got married. They knew each
okay,
other, of
okay,
course, because Lisa was in the group.
yeah.
And they all went to church together. In fact, my wife was over the children's choir that all of them were in. Kiera, all of them. Jay Drew, they were all in the kids' choir. They were called the KWJVs.
Okay, okay, okay.
Kids with voice for Jesus.
Okay, okay, got you, got you.
And man, they used to crush. They used to crush. And but Jay, Tasha, Jessica, Satira, and Tia, I made a group with them called Kindred.
Okay.
And because what a lot of people don't know is Jay can blow too,
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. Yeah.
like really blow, like blow good enough. Listen, I've been telling this guy this for years. Why don't you just make your own record, man? He can sing like that.
Okay, got you, got you.
Yeah. Um, he's a writer, and of course, I mean, you can tell, phenomenal musician. And
Absolutely.
so when they were, I think Tasha would have been about maybe 15. So Tasha was 15. That made Jay like maybe 10, because they're all kind of stair steps.
Yeah.
Which my wife and I had 5 teenagers at one time, which was
Wow. Wow.
a terrible thing to.
Oh man.
We made it through though.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But they had this group called Kindred, and I'm telling you, man, they were going places, and it was crazy. Because I mean, they had this thing, and had started writing songs together, and then they just all kind of went different ways in terms of what they wanted to do.
Right,
But
right.
to see them flourish, Tasha with her singing, and I mean, it just really is it is a great thing to see, to watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I remember the time I actually got to meet you in person was we were talking before about when Commission 2019 did the reunion tour. You guys came
Mhm.
to Connecticut, and it's funny, I was actually sitting right next to Tasha. And Jay was playing with you guys. You both were playing for the concert, and then she got called up to sing. I'm trying to think what song it was, but she came and kind of joined in on the vamp of a song, and it was kind of like a whole
Mhm.
family affair. It was amazing to see. So it's great to see how the legacy is passed on to that next generation.
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
But
It's a
yeah,
wonderful thing.
yeah. So it thank you once again for doing this interview. It's you don't know how much of an honor and a pleasure it is to be able to speak with you because I write songs since I was a kid. I play music, and commission had such a huge influence on my life. So it's an amazing thing to be able to connect with you and kind of hear the backstory, and it's definitely a blessing. So I want to say thank you so much for being willing to speak, and it was no hassle with getting you on, and we were able to do this, and it's such a blessing. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it, and you know, it is always a pleasure to talk about what God has done in terms of just bringing you from nowhere to where you are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you once again. It's been a blessing. I hope those of you that are listening were just as blessed as I was to be able to hear from Bishop Michael Brooks. And as I always say, only what you do for Christ will last, which is actually a song that you wrote as well, right?
Well, actually, I didn't write that one. Mitchell and I think Mitchell Jones wrote that.
Oh, okay, okay. But you
Yeah,
produced it though,
yeah.
right?
I produced it and did the arrangement. Yeah.
Got you. But yeah, I say that every episode. Only what you do for Christ will last. Take it one day at a time and keep it pushing. This has been another episode of the Interlude with Drew. Until next time, God bless you all.
It's the Interlude with Drew.